Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome, glad to have you here. Oh look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure? It's cultist coffee. What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning. It is great to see you today. Today is kind of a chill morning. I feel like I had a little bit of time to breathe here at the moment, because winding down some projects and then about to get started on another. So I figured we had a fantastic kind of chill night on Table Talk last night. I think we need a kind of chill morning this morning here on this show. And before we start diving into new projects, I did actually start cleaning yesterday. I didn't just be obsessed with cleaning yesterday, but I was like, all right, I got to start getting this place in order. Started cleaning, and man, that is feeling good. So I'm going to clean more today, and I'm going to write today. So cleaning and writing, because this place is going to need hours worth of attention in order to get back in order. So I figure we'll just chill here today, and then get back really in action tomorrow. We're going to be taking a look at, so in order to chill, I realized, oh yeah, well, we were going to take a look at this. I've got this right here. This is the 30th anniversary edition of the Star Wars role-playing game originally published by West End Games. This 30th anniversary edition was put out by Fantasy Flight. So we're just going to take a look at that this morning and see what's going on. So let's see. I've never looked at it. Good morning, James. Good morning. So James says, I've only ever played the Fantasy Flight Star Wars RPG, but it was very fun. We tended away from the Jedi and stuck to the non-Force classes, except for the one absolutely miserable Sith game. So we did take a look at some Star Wars stuff, some of the newer Star Wars things, a game by Fantasy Flight. I'm not sure where my boxes are at the moment, but we did unbox those. There were starter sets. There were several starter sets. And I didn't know that they'd even come out until basically they were already gone. Somehow I missed those. But we did play. We did look at them here on the grind. Oh, and I saw James. I saw that message come in. I haven't been over there. Thank you. I'm going to work with that this afternoon. I'll message you back. Good morning, PH. I like this. James says, if Chewie is short for Chewbacca, what's Luke short for? A stormtrooper. That's a Candace original. That's fantastic. Good morning, Lynn. PH says, Heath, look at this on YouTube. Memento Mori does corruption like no other RPG review. Okay. I'll put that over here to watch later. Oh, by the way, I did also start Dune. So I got the Dune audiobook because I was like, all right, we got to get through Dune here so we can talk about Dune on Table Talk when the second movie comes out. So I've been saying, I need to go through the book. So now we're done with Faraway Bird. It's time to take a look at Dune. And I got the audiobook and I was thinking, while I'm cleaning yesterday, I will just watch, I will listen to Dune. Instantly fell in love with it. Okay. I was like, oh my God, okay, this is going to be fantastic. I mean, like instantly. But then the problem was I was like sweeping and making noise. I was like, I can't listen to this while I'm sweeping and making noise. So I am into Dune now, but I'm going to have to listen to it when I'm doing an activity that isn't like clanking stuff together as I'm taking out the trash. So I am on to Dune now. So if you have not, that's the next Table Talk book. That's the next Table Talk book, which we're talking about the movies too. But I'm using the release of the movie finally. I didn't do that for the first one, but I'm using the release of the second movie as an excuse to go through Dune. So I just have started that now. So it is now into it and loving it. Okay, let's see. So what I was trying to do though is so this is Memento Mori corruption RPG. Okay, found it. I will check that out. Thank you for the recommendation, PH. Hey, Danny. Yeah, we're now like we hit 70 degrees yesterday. Dune is to science fiction as The Lord of the Rings is to fantasy. It's the best science fiction novel of all time. It's the best-selling science fiction novel of all time. Yeah, I have a feeling that it's going to become, well, one of my favorites. And I've always known that people who love Dune, people who like Dune, love Dune. So I've known that for a long time. And that was actually one of the reasons. I had a feeling that I was really going to like it too. Traditionally, I don't read a whole lot of science fiction. I read more fantasy for some reason. So that's probably why I never kind of picked it up. But I know that people who enjoy it are really into it. And I knew that, I think if I get into this, I'm really going to be into it. And yes, like I said, from even the first few sentences, I was like, okay, yes. I'm definitely going to be into this. So I'm definitely going to be a big Dune fan. Let's see. I was thinking about that. James says, I refuse to read it when you said this, I refuse to read it for the longest time based solely on the fact the main character of a sci-fi series is named Paul. Come on. Let's see. So last night, let's bring up this over here. Last night we had a fantastic conversation, very chill conversation with a retro nerd girl. Right here on the Table Talk channel. We talked, we got to know her. So for about the first 30 minutes, we just talked and got to know Retro Nerd Girl. She's been on the show before. She's fantastic. We just kind of got to know her because she'd been on streams with other people. And I like to have somebody on solo first so that we can get to know them before they start coming on with other people. But Retro Nerd Girl had just jumped right into the fire and been on streams with other people. So as a result, we hadn't really gotten to know Retro Nerd Girl. She runs her own channel, of course, with movie reviews. So we just talked with her and got to know Retro last night. And then she and I talked He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So the Masters of the Universe movie, but we talked about cartoons as well. It was a fantastic, chill conversation talking about things that we remember from He-Man and we remember from childhood and how important they are to us. Of course, we broke down the movie as well. So I highly recommend watching the conversation with Retro Nerd Girl. I'll put the link to right here. Retro Nerd Girl. So on Table Talk, see what's going. We get this big week on Table Talk. I got to get my thumbnails together. Sunday on Table Talk, I'm re-airing the. Let's go over here. Still trying to move videos that were originally over here on this channel over to Table Talk. So Sunday. Well, where is it? Silence of the Lambs. I think I fixed up its date. Silence of the Lambs. I want to be sure because I had scheduled it wrong. Table Talk. There it is. Tabletop. Silence of the Lambs. January 28th. Is that right? This is 26th, 27th. Yes, 28th, 1 o'clock p.m. Doug and me. Silence of the Lambs. But then next week we've got Christopher Vogler. Christopher Vogler, the author of The Writer's Journey, which is the guide to the hero's journey for writers in Hollywood. So we've got that on Tuesday night. And then Matt Bird, who wrote The Secrets of Story, is going to be on Thursday. So this is an epic week coming up in Table Talk. S. Becker, hey, it's good to see you. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're here. I was actually just thinking about you a few days ago because I've also been moving the Dinner and a Board Game episodes over to the dedicated Dinner and a Board Game channel. And as I was rewatching them, I was seeing your chats come up in the chat, and I was like, oh, I hope you're doing well. So glad to see you here. So S. Becker says, we played the Star Wars RPG back in the day. There was a companion X-Wing board game with counters I've been trying to find online forever. I think I know what you're talking about, even though I've never seen it. So one of the funny things about this, one of the reason that I picked up this board game or this RPG kind of goes along with what we were talking about with Star Wars, He-Man last night on the Table Talk channel. I remember I had some type of magazine. Was it one of the He-Man magazines? Because we talked about that. I think it must have been a Star Wars magazine. But I had some magazine as a kid that had, products in the back, advertisements for different products in the back. And I remember this, not this 30th anniversary edition, but the role-playing game. I think before I knew what a role-playing game was, but it had the cover on here, and then it had such a neat description. I mean, obviously, it would have been something that I would have liked. And I was like, man, that sounds like a fantastic game. But of course, I never got it. But then also in that same magazine, there was some advertisement for an X-Wing game. And I bet it was that. Because I remember them being, and I was like, man, I don't know what these things are, but they sound really cool. So I bet that was it. If we ever find it, that would be fun to take a look at as well. Hey, Zero. Good morning, Zero. All right, so that's what's going on over on Table Talk. The cultists. I've gotten a draft, or what's more of an advanced draft. We're getting pretty close to done with the cover for the Cultist RPG. Now we got to put stuff in the Cultist RPG, which we're going to be taking a look. I'm taking a bit of a break because I'm going to do my writing and my story drafting because I really want to be able to get these short stories taken care of. I need to be pushing it on the writing front, story writing front too. But then next week we'll start talking about building out a Cultist RPG and the Ritual board game, and I'm really looking forward to that. And launching the Cultist in a big way. The Cultist is, of course, my web show. It is the modern day. It's a comedy mockumentary about modern day Lovecraftian cultists just trying to worship Cthulhu in a world full of people who don't understand. So, and then we'll start scheduling releases of new episodes and probably having, watch streams for them and things like that. So that's coming. So please be a part of that channel if you are not already. James says the more recent and now discontinued X-Wing game is now fun. Oh, X-Wing is also discontinued now. I played X-Wing a few times. And I remember thinking it was good. All right. And then also, if you want to play games, so the last thing is, if you would like to play games with us online, if you want to play, we got Hero Quest, we've got Wizard's Quest, which is a Risk-like strategy game. We're going to be playing games tomorrow night from 10 p.m. to from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Central. We're going to be doing this online. If you've been following here on the Morning Grind, we've got our online coffee shop. And I am opening it up for basically session 0 tomorrow night. So we've got our coffee shop where you can walk around as your digital avatar. We've got different spaces to play. You sit down and connect by video call with different people. Of course, when you're walking around the tavern or the coffee shop here, you'll be connecting to people who are there through video call. So it's a really neat kind of natural environment to walk around and connect with people. So if you'd like to play Hero Quest, I'm offered to run a Hero Quest game at just after 5 o'clock, the trial, so we can get started playing that. If you haven't played Hero Quest, of course, we can teach any of these games too. If you haven't played or you aren't feeling like you're playing enough, well, we're an online community, so we need some way to play online games. So we've got so I'm opening this up for I'm calling it basically session 0. Session 0 tomorrow from 0 to basically 0 to conclusion to test out all of the different components and things like that. And did I finally get everything right? So is it working? Is it functional? Is everybody able to get a ticket and then log in and then play the games and enjoy themselves and have fun? And then are we able to go through this whole process? And if we can, then we will, one of the next big projects as well, in addition to getting the Cultist launched, is to start putting together online gaming conventions and doing events. But first, we're going to do session 0. So if you want to hang out with me tomorrow night, if you want to play games, I'm looking forward to it. Need some chill, relaxed time. I don't do enough gaming. So here's a way to do it. So if you want to come in, play with us, of course, we've been building out the virtual tabletops and stuff like that. We can play any of the things that we've built out. If you would like to be a part of that, and of course, you don't have to be there for the entire time either. I'm just saying it's going to be open from 5 to 10 Central Time. It's not like you have to be there the entire time. So if you would like to come by, hang out, enjoy yourself, you are absolutely welcome to. I would love to have you. We only have 7 slots remaining. So we've got we only have 7 more slots remaining. If you would like one, you can pick up a ticket. We only have 7 slots remaining. So if you would like a ticket, get it right there. And then you'll get a link and a passcode in order to get in, and then we'll have a good time. All right. I would love to see you. I think we're going to have something really good happening there with the coffee shop and doing online conventions. I think we're going to have a lot of fun because I know there are a lot of people like me out there. And of course, in-person gaming and going out to Gen Con and Origins is fun. But hey, they only come once a year anyway. And, not everybody can get out to those conventions anyway. So with this, I think this is going to be a really good way for the convention to come to you. PH says, that Netflix show about toys from our childhood showed an interview with Hasbro creator from HeMan, and they said they just had the HeMan toys. During the pitching interview, they had to pretend they thought already about the comic book and an animated series. And after the pitching, they had to fulfill all the promises. I remember that. That was an episode from the Toys That Made Us. But there's an extended version of that called By the Power of Grayskull, or just The Power of Grayskull, which is, I think, uses a lot of that footage, but they must have had so much. They're like, man, we just need a whole dedicated HeMan documentary. And so it's about 2 hours long or an hour and a half long or something. And goes through the entire development of HeMan and all that. Man, it is fantastic. I highly recommend people watch those if you're into HeMan and you appreciated HeMan as a kid. You should definitely check out that. I found it highly inspirational from the creative side of things. All right. Oh yeah. So the toys that made us, but then there's also there's a longer version as well called the Power of Grayskull. It was on Netflix when I saw it. All right, let's do our reading this morning before we get into Star Wars. Let me try to pull up my book here. All right. Everybody, you got your favorite beverage this morning? I do. I got coffee this morning right here. If I got Cultist coffee, no, I got Witch's Brew this morning. Let's see. All right, let's take 2 deep breaths in through the nose, then complete exhales through the mouth. 2, focus on your breathing. Just focus for a few seconds this morning, and then we'll take a sip of our favorite beverage. So here we go. Let's breathe in. And sip. All right, this is Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield. Write what you don't know. Years ago in New York, I had hit the wall as a failed novelist. My next day's to-do list had been reduced by two options. Kill myself by hanging, kill myself by jumping off the roof. Instead, I decided to write a screenplay. The story I wrote was about prison. I've never been to prison. I didn't know the first thing about prison, but I was so desperate that I plunged in, slinging bullshit with both hands and not looking back. When I was done, I showed the script to a few writers I knew. More than one tugged me aside and asked in a whisper, "Steve, where did you do time?" Good things happen when we trust the mystery. There's always something in the box. Take what the defense gives you. Every time I write every book I write has at least one giant section that's as tough as a knot and a plank of lumber. I can't crack it head on. Attacking it from the flank doesn't work. The damn thing is just too stubborn. When you're up against that type of resistance, there's no shame in taking what the defense will give you. In football terms, we shut that part of the playbook that contains the deep go routes and the 55-yard bombs. We turn instead to that section that has the short slants and 3-yard dinks into the flat. The two key tenets for days when resistance is really strong. 1, take what you can get and stay patient. The defense may crack late in the game. And 2, play for tomorrow. Our role on tough nut days is to maintain our composure and keep chipping away. We're pros. We're not amateurs. We have the patience. We can handle diversity. Tomorrow the defense may give us more, and tomorrow we'll take it. There's a third tenet that underlines the first 2. 3, we're in this for the long haul. Our work is a practice. 1 bad day is nothing to us. 10 bad days are nothing. In the scheme of our lifelong process, 24 hours when we can't gain yardage is only a speed bump. We'll forget it by breakfast tomorrow and be back again, ready to hurl our bodies into the fray. Zero says, so the guy went with secret option C. Exactly, yes. When your only 2 options are 2 different ways to kill yourself, take a third option. All right, let's see what's in this book. Let's see what's going on here. Let's get the auxiliary camera going. Let's see. There we go. Good morning, Yogg-Sothoth. All right, so this So I got this a while back ago. And have not ever looked at it. And basically the only reason that I got it was because it had been in that magazine. And I was like, oh, before I even knew what a role-playing game was, I was like, oh man, this sounds really cool. So we will see. So we got Star Wars, the role-playing game. So this is the 30th. I mean, it says it's published just like it was, I noticed. So this is a Star Wars game from West End Games. But this particular one was republished by Fantasy Flight Games. I noticed it's got the Fantasy Flight logo on the cover. So this I think was published about the same time that Fantasy Flight Games was publishing its own Star Wars RPG. But they decided to bring back the classics, which is always a good way. Lynn says, I definitely remember that cover art. Yeah, I know. I agree. It's something that everybody knows. I definitely remember that cover art, but I've never played it, and I don't know anyone who has. So we got 2 books in here, the role-playing game and the source book. And I also think that this source book, the source book for us might be one of the more interesting things to take a look at. Because I think this was a pretty early expansion of the expansion and filling out of the Star Wars universe from the RPG perspective, or that came about as a result of RPGs, and I think probably has worked its way into some level of canon, let's say, about more stuff about the ships and the alien races and things like that. So let's see. Okay, let's just take a look at this one first. This is actually just the role-playing game, and let's figure out how it works here. Star Wars, the role-playing game. Experience the vast scope of sweeping power of the greatest space fantasy of all time. Struggle against the awesome might of the evil galactic empire. Fly faster than light spacecraft. Trade blaster fire with Imperial stormtroopers. Fight lightsaber duels and tap the mystic force which binds all living things together. Explore a galaxy of a billion suns, each with wonders and dangers of their own. A universe of dire peril where rebels fight desperately against the eternal night of imperial oppression. The Star Wars, the role-playing game, you will face overwhelming odds, hard choices, impossible challenges, but if you meet them bravely, you will triumph, for the Force is with you, always. That might have been the passage, I can't say for sure, but something like that might have been the passage in that magazine. So inside Star Wars, the role-playing game, you'll find 24 character templates, which let you choose a role and start playing quickly. Innovative and sophisticated yet simple rules for blasters, lightsabers, combat, the Force, powers of the Jedi, starship combat, and more. How to design thrilling adventures, maintain a Star Wars atmosphere, and keep players excited. An introductory solo adventure. Oh, really? It's got an introductory solo adventure in here. We might have to play that one more. A complete first adventure for 2 to 6 players, and many short adventure ideas that game masters can develop themselves. 16 full-color pages with memorable pictures taken from the movies, plus many illustrations, some never before published from Lucasfilm's archives. Get out your dice, get your friends together and ready, and may the Force be with you, for the fate of the galaxy depends on you. And they actually have a blurb on the back here. What is a role-playing game? In this game, you and other players take the part of characters in the Star Wars universe. You decide how your characters act. A game master describes what you see, establishes the plot, and acts as referee. Together, you can create your own Star Wars saga as you play. I am sure I would have loved this as a kid. S. Becker says, if I remember right, I think this version had narrative cutscenes the GM read. Let's see. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. The Old Republic. The Old Republic was. See, when was this published? Let's get some historical context here. So, do we have a date, original publication date? Maybe on the back. Maybe here. Okay, first printing. This is October 1987. First printing 1987. So this is, for our context, this is 1987. I mean, this is pretty cool. The Old Republic was the Republic of Legends, greater than distance or time. Once, under the wise rule of the Senate and the protection of the Jedi Knights, the Republic throve and grew. But as often happens when wealth and power pass beyond the admirable and attain the awesome, then appear those evil ones who have greed to match. So it was with the Republic at its height. Like the greatest of trees, able to withstand any external attack, the Republic grew rotten from within, though the danger was not visible from the outside. Aided and abetted by restless, power-hungry individuals within the government and the massive organs of commerce, the ambitious Senator Palpatine caused himself to be elected president of the Republic. He promised to reunite the disaffected among the people and restore the remembered glory of the Republic. Once secure in office, he declared himself emperor, shutting himself away from the populace. The cries of the people for justice did not reach his ears. Having exterminated through treachery and deception the Jedi Knights, guardians of justice in the galaxy, the imperial governors and bureaucrats prepared to institute a reign of terror among the disheartened worlds of the galaxy. Many used the imperial forces and the name of increasingly isolated emperor to further their own political ambitions. But a small number of systems rebelled at those new outrages. Declaring themselves opposed to the new order, they began the great battle to restore the old Republic. From the beginning, they were vastly outnumbered by the systems held in thrall by the Emperor. In those first dark days, it seemed certain the bright flame of resistance would be extinguished before it could even cast a light of new truth across the galaxy, as a galaxy of oppressed and beaten people. This is the galaxy into which you were born, the galaxy of Star Wars, the role-playing game. Sable says, where did I get a copy of this, Heath? I think I just bought it off Amazon, but this was a couple of years ago. So, I mean, this is not an original printing. This is the reprint by Fantasy Flight Games. Specifically, this is the 30th anniversary edition. So this is not an original. Now, I don't know how easy these are to get as well, but 30th anniversary edition. Oh, hey, thank you. RPG Exiles, good to see you. Welcome. WEG is a great system. Yeah, so when people talk about the WEG system, this is what they're talking about. Large D6 pools can get a bit clunky and slow, though. This is going for $200 now? Oh, whoa. Well, I'm glad I just kind of picked it up as a whim years ago, because I was like, oh, that's the game. It was probably about the same time I was picking up some of those these HeMan action figures, because I was like, oh, man. This is such a blast from the past with childhood. This is probably about the same thing. RPG Exile says, but with modern VTT that seem to have eliminated the adding and counting of dice pools, this is totally viable today. Oh, interesting. All right. Well, hopefully this game does a good job of organizing so we can actually figure out what its game mechanics are. I am interested. Hey, Michael. Let's see. So, table of contents, we've got an introduction player section. Well, no, this does start with creating a character. Chapter 2, it says the bare bones, and then Chapter 3, an introduction to role-playing. Although that is rather short, pages 7 through 17. Well, that's interesting. So, the whole player section including creating a character, the bare bones, and introduction to role-playing is only 10 pages. So, maybe the bare bones is basically how to play. That would be interesting if the character creation is that fast. Then we have a game master section, which is an introduction to game mastering, attributes and skills, combat, wounds and healing, starships, the force, and other characters. I guess there's a lot more about how to actually play in there. And then the adventure section, running adventures, designing adventures, rebel breakout adventure, and then adventure ideas. We got character templates, charts and tables. Hey, let's see if we got a character sheet in the back. Oh, wait, looks like it. Wait, we got stuff in the back here. Oh, there's actually, don't miss those are the new ones from Fantasy Flight. Star Wars Destiny. All right, let's see what we got in the back here. Looks like we've got tables organized here. Grenade scatter diagram. Wait, is it these? Oh, this is interesting. I've never seen a chapter 4 adventure ideas. Okay, character template. So, all right. So, what are we going to be seeing here in this game? We've got character type up here, character name, player name, height, weight, sex, age, and physical description. Looks like our major attributes are dexterity, perception, knowledge, strength, mechanical, and technical. And then under dexterity, we've got things like blaster, brawling, parry, dodge, grenade, heavy weapons, melee, parry, melee. Under perception, we've got bargain, command, con, gambling, hide, sneak, and search. Under knowledge, we've got alien races, bureaucracy, cultures, languages, planetary systems, streetwise, survival, and technology. Under strength, we've got brawling, climbing, jumping, lifting, stamina, and swimming. Under mechanical, we've got astrogation, beast riding, repulsor lift operation, starship gunnery, starship piloting, starship shields. And then under technical, we've got, I believe that's computer programming and repair, demolition, droid programming and repair, medicine, repulsor lift repair, security, starship repair, control, sense. And then we also have here control in bold, control, sense, and alter. So those seem like they're different than what is under technical. So I wonder if this has to do with the Force. Control, sense, and alter. We've got a place here for force points. We've got dark side points, people. We've got dark side points, wound status, and skill points. And then we've got a place for equipment, background, personality, a quote, and connection with other characters. Zero the Blade says, I kind of remember as a kid, I had a Star Wars RPG that came in a case shaped like Vader's helmet. Huh. PH says, oh, I just remembered. Yesterday, the Channel House DM launched a video about Crown and Skull. They already have the book. Oh, I don't know this. This is an RPG, but about 4 months ago, the Runehammer channel launched a video called Morit, Crown Mechanics, which explains a lot of the system. I have not heard of that one. Lynn says, your Star Wars name, first 3 letters of your last name, plus first 2 letters of your first name. Then the first 2 letters of your mother's maiden name. Plus first, that's complicated. But yeah, that would be funny. That's who you are. So that's what our character sheet is going to be. This is how we're going to be dealing with our characters. I noticed that over here, it looks like we've got character sheets in the long strips. So we've got alien student of the Force. Noble, arrogant noble, armchair historian. Oh, wait, look. And we got a lot of info on the back of these right here. So it tells you, for instance, arrogant noble, equipment, several changes of clothing in the latest styles, holdout blaster, 1 melee weapon of choice, personal land speeder, and 2,000 credits standard. You've got a background, a personality, the quote, and the connection with other characters here. So it fills out that for you. So I guess these are pre-made characters, which I love pre-made characters. But it's interesting here. We're going to have to see. It lets you fill out age, sex, weight, physical description, all of that. But it looks like, well, you don't have any force points. You don't start with dark side points, but you don't start with force points either. Well, I wonder if other people have. Well, Alien Student of the Force doesn't start with this either here. Oh. So the Crown and Skull. Well, maybe that one needs to go on the list here. We talked about it already. Crown and Skull, the new RPG from Runehammer. Well, maybe they are supposed to be for NPCs. I don't know. Because I was noticing, so we got like we do have the dice here. So under Arrogant Noble, we've got Dexterity 3D plus 1. Perception is 4D. I'm noticing that under in the subcategories here, we don't have anything. So we just have the big, the major categories with dice here. Alien Student, Noble, Arrogant, Historian, Bounty Hunter, Brash Pilot. Oh, Ewok. We got an Ewok here. Failed Jedi, Gambler Kid, Laconic Scout, Loyal Retainer, the Merc, Minor Jedi, Mon Calamari, Old Senatorial, the Outlaw, the Pirate, the Quixotic Jedi, Retired Imperial Captain, Smuggler, Tongue-Tied Engineer, Young Senatorial, a Wookiee, a Tough Native, and that's it. So that's our, I guess, our character templates here. PH says, my group never liked too much to play Star Wars RPG because of the dark points. They wanted the freedom to be murder hobos and keep playing. So RPG Exile says you can specialize to get these subcategories. Michael says D6 games like this used to give a lot of generic examples. Okay, so now we know at least what the character sheet's looking like, and maybe that gives us a general idea about where we might be going. So let's see how to play. I don't know if we're or how this book presents it. So I think information on role-playing game. Okay, we get into chapter 1, creating a character. Okay, well this says there are 24 character templates on pages 123 to 138. So that's what we just looked at. Each describes a character who fits the Star Wars universe. It provides basic game information for the character, the numbers you use when the character does something in the game, as well as background material to tell you about the character's motives, what he or she is like, and how he or she reacts to other characters. Look them over, then choose one you would like to play. A character template is only an outline. You have to flesh it out. For example, there are a lot of smugglers in the Star Wars universe. Han Solo is one, and a very good one, but there are plenty of others. That's why we included a smuggler template. But every smuggler is a little different from every other smuggler. When you decide to be a smuggler, you must decide exactly what your character is like. You must decide exactly what your character is like. Michael says, D6 Fantasy, mostly the same system, has many examples. Even if another player is choosing the template you want, you can still choose the same template too. There can be 2 smugglers in the same group. However, the group should be balanced. Every character has different abilities. Some are good at flying starships, some in hand-to-hand combat. Some know a lot about planets and other races of the galaxy. Okay, so copying templates. You record information about your character on your template. You record information about your character on your template, his equipment, appearance, skills, wound status, and so on. When you play, you want your template in front of you at the table so you can pencil in changes as they occur. This is a problem since the it says this is a problem since the templates are bound into the book. One solution is to photocopy them. Okay. One solution is to photocopy them. Each page is divided into 3 templates, and templates are printed front to back. The front of each template is printed with game data, and the back with the background template. Cut the photocopies apart and make sure you get both the front and the back part of your template when you choose your character. Okay, if you don't have access to a photocopy machine or time to get copies, just copy down your character's template attributes on scrap paper. Don't worry about copying down the background information. Read it once and refer back to the book when you need to refresh your memory. That's funny. Okay, now customizing your template. All right, so about this. Okay, die codes. The next step is to customize your template. But before you can do that, you'll need to know a bit more about skills and attributes. Die codes. Whenever you try to do something in the game, you roll dice. The higher the number you roll, the better, and the better chance you can do what you want. How many dice do you roll? That depends on your die code. Each skill and attribute has a die code. See below. So when you use a skill or attribute, you look at the code to see how many dice you should roll. Here is a typical die code, 3D. That means roll 3 dice and add the numbers you roll together. D stands for die. So you can roll, if you roll a 3 on one die, a 2 on another, and a 6 on a third, your total die roll is 11. Here's another die code, 2D plus 2. That means roll 2 dice and add the numbers together and add 2 to the total. Okay, so we got that. Every character has attributes and skills. Attributes are things you're born with, innate abilities. There are 6 in the game: dexterity, knowledge, mechanical, perception, strength, and technical. Skills are abilities you learn instead of things you're born with. You can't improve your attributes during the game, just as you can't make yourself smarter or taller. You can improve your skills. Your character has a die code for every attribute and skill. The die code is the die you roll when you use the attribute or skill. Example, Roark Garrett's dexterity is 3D plus 1. So if he tries to juggle something, his player rolls 3 dice, adds the dice together, and adds 1 to the total. Your attribute codes are printed on your character template. Different character templates have different codes, but all smugglers, for example, have the same attributes. However, you get to choose your own skill codes. That's what customization is for. Okay, so you're going to be adding in. We said that, yeah, we noticed that on skills there was nothing there. So this allows you to customize them. Lynn says, I remember the days when you had to go to Phase or something and feed nickels into the photocopier. I do too. I remember taking the MERP RPG, because there were a lot of things in the MERP RPG, even including hex grid paper that was in the MERP RPG. And I remember going to make photocopies of stuff in the back of the MERP book. And like, I think my grandfather took me and he thought I needed to make like 2 photocopies, but I left with a stack of paper because all right, I need, all of the XP sheets and the character sheets and the hex paper. That's how I got all of my hex paper, was by photocopying stuff from the MERP book. PH says, hey, props to them for the honesty. RPGs nowadays can't afford that. Yeah, it's funny to see how things are written. That's why the time was important. This is 1987. So, right. So, so this is essentially a D6 die pool system with flat modifier. It hasn't, one thing I'm noticing that it hasn't told me is like how you know if you succeeded. I think we're about to get to that, but I think RPG Exiles is going to help us out. So RPG Exile says, yep, the mods never exceed +2. If they do, then you roll an additional die. Oh yeah, I remembered something about that. I thought it was like +4 or something. So if you get to a certain modifier, then instead you start adding another die. So, okay. So we're going to customize our skills here. Choosing skill codes. Each attribute has a list of skills printed beneath it on the character template. For example, blaster, brawling, parry, dodge, and several others are listed under dexterity. They're all dexterity skills. A skill starts with the same code as the attribute it's printed under. Example, Roark's dexterity code is 3D plus 1. That means his blaster code is 3D plus 1. His brawling parry code is 3D plus 1, and so forth. So on. You have 7D to allocate to skills. To allocate 1D to a skill, add 1D to the attribute's code and write the result next to the skill name in the character template. For example, Roark's dexterity is 3D plus 1. His player allocates 1D to dodge. His dodge skill code is now 4D plus 1. The player writes 4D plus 1 next to dodge on the template. He has 6D left to allocate to other skills. No skill can be increased by more than 2D. So, for example, Roark's player could allocate 1D to blaster, increasing the blaster code to 4D plus 1. He could allocate 2D to blaster, Or he could allocate 2D to blaster, increasing the code to 5D plus 1. He could not allocate 3D or more. You get to choose. You get to choose which skills are increased and can allocate dice to any skills you like, so long as you don't spend more than 7D total, and as long as no single skill gets more than 2D. To get to choose what skills are increased. Oh no, let's see. You get to choose which skills are increased, and you can allocate dice to any skill you like, so long as you don't spend more than 70. Okay, said that. So example, Erwin decides. Okay, so note for players using scrap paper to record characters. All skills start with the same code at the attribute they're printed under, so you only need to write the skill in which you allocate dice on your paper. If you use a different skill, just look up the governing attribute to determine your skill code. That still didn't tell me how to know when you're successful. Special rules for the Force. Special skills are printed on a few character templates. See the Alien Student, the Failed Jedi, the Minor Jedi, and the Quixotic Jedi. If a Force skill is printed on your template, the skill code is printed next to it. Force skills, unlike others, are not related to attributes. If you have a Force skill on your template, you can allocate dice from your 7D to increase your skill code. If you don't have Force skills, too bad. The only way to gain a Force skill is to find someone who knows it and teach it to you. All characters begin with 1 Force point. Enter 1 on the Force point circle of the character template. Okay. Also on your character template is equipment section. It lists all things your character starts the game with. Most characters start the game with some money and credit standard. If you like, you can spend some of it to buy more equipment. See the chart on page 141 for prices. Character connections. One of the most important parts of character creation is deciding on when and how the players know each other. In the Star Wars movies, the main characters never let each other down. Luke even breaks his training as a Jedi in order to rescue friends. It's important for the player characters to have some kind of feelings about one another. As a rule of thumb, each character in the group should have met and at least know one of the other characters. So it gives an example here of a discussion about coming up with connection between characters. Well, this does, so that is pretty easy character creation. I got to hand it to it there. As far as, all right, we got 24 different character types here. Pick one. And aside from doing your, things like physical description and things like that, allocate 7D to these skills. That probably doesn't take all that long. It already gives you your equipment. There's a 1 that goes in Force points. That's pretty fast character creation. I got to say, I got to hand it to it. RPG Exile says it's a DC system. Easy, moderate, hard, if I remember. I used my own DCs as well. Lynn says, it sounds like these templates function essentially as character classes. It sounds like it. Lynn says, and yet everybody important in A New Hope was a complete stranger when the story opened. Good morning, Tomocrat. Yeah, that's true. Han and Chewie knew each other. X-Men of War says, Man of War says, or X-Man says, the difficulty levels were 5, 10, 15, and 20, etc. Okay, thank you. So that's what you're trying to roll. So this is the bare bones. So, all right, this might actually just tell us everything we need to know about to play. This chapter teaches you enough of the rules to play. The Game Master section describes the rules in more detail. Attributes and skills. Every character's attributes and skills. Let's see. Which do you use? Skills supersede attributes. You can only use an attribute when there's no skill that is affected by what you're doing. For instance, if you want to juggle, use your dexterity attribute because there's no juggling skill. Opposed roles. Sometimes you use an attribute or skill against something who's using the same attribute or skill or a different one to resist you. For example, if you use your strength to arm wrestle someone, he's using his strength to arm wrestle back. In this case, you must both roll your dice, and the higher roll wins. For example, As the bathysphere spun crazily through the massive planet's vicious atmosphere, dropping ever downwards towards the striated clouds far below, Rorik Garanet and the last remaining Imperial wrestled desperately for control of the wheel. The Imperial strength is 2D plus 2. Rorik's is 3D. Rorik's player rolls and gets an 8. The Game Master rolls for the Imperial, an 11. Elbowing Rorik aside, the Imperial grabbed the wheel and spun it, trying to regain control and set the craft back on course. "Curse you, rebel," he cried. There's 1,000 atmospheres out there. There's 1,000 atmospheres out there. The hull can't stand that much more. Let me fly this thing, or we're all dead men. James says, this game seems great so far, but we've had so much fun with the Fantasy Flight rules. I don't know if I could play this game without constantly thinking this is how the Fantasy Flight did it. I don't remember all of the... I'd have to go back and look at the Fantasy Flight rules when we look. I tried playing that game accidentally with my nephews, and they were too young for it. I screwed up. I was also trying to learn at the same time. That was a botched gaming session. Hero Quest and things like that goes much better. That game used all the Dustum dice and stuff. Tomocrat says D&D took a lot from the system for their Star Wars. Now, I do remember playing that. We played that quite a bit, too. The D20 Star Wars that was put out by Wizards. I do remember playing that. If the rolls are tied, the player character wins over a non-player character. If both are player characters and the rolls are tied, re-roll. What happens if one side has an advantage? In this case, the Game Master assigns one side a modifier. The modifier is added to the roll, so his chances of winning increases. For example, while Rorik watched, the Imperial wrestled the craft with some semblance of stability, sweating a bit as he labored. Through the viewport swirled a red-tinted mist. The upper clouds of the Jovian's massive atmosphere. Suddenly, a huge gray shape loomed out of the clouds. "Hey!" Rorik yelled, and grabbed the wheel again. The Game Master rules the Imperial was tired by his effort to control the craft and assigns Rorik a modifier of +2. Rorik rolls an 8, so he gets a modified 10. The Imperial rolls a 9, so Rorik controls the wheel. With scant centimeters to spare, the bathysphere dove under the gray form. Along its long underside were feathery appendages and sphincters which opened and closed. "That's impossible," stammered the Imperial. "There's no life forms on this planet." So difficulty numbers. Most of the time, you aren't trying to beat somebody else. So I would put difficulty numbers before the explanation of opposed rolls. X-Man says, the Star Wars source book, this one right here, created the EU as we know it today. I was saying in the beginning that I thought that this book was very significant in the development of the fleshing out of the universe. That's what I thought. Oh, Tomocrat says, Bill from the writer of this system worked on the D&D system also. Oh, that's interesting. So difficulty numbers. So here we go. Most of the time, you aren't trying to beat anyone else. For example, if you're trying to fix a malfunctioning hyperdrive, there's no one opposing you. In this case, the Game Master assigns a difficulty number to the task. If your roll is equal to or greater than the difficulty number, you succeed. If it's lower, you fail. Suddenly, Rorik felt 100 kilos heavier. Clutching the wheel, he remained erect, but every moment standing was an effort. "The repulsors," he said. We're exposed to the planet's full gravity." The Imperial lay carefully down on the deck. "We're doomed," he said. "Trapped on a gas giant beneath the cloud layer. We're doomed." The hull creaked ominously. "Shut up," said Rorik. "Where do you keep the repulsors on this thing?" "Oh, back that way," said the Imperial, nodding vaguely at the aft. Muttering under his breath, Rorik braced himself against the bulkhead and began to walk carefully toward the drives. Rorik's repulsor lift repair skill is 2D plus 2. The Game Master rules that the difficulty number is 10. Rorik's player rolls and gets a 12. The repulsors are working again. He breathes a sigh of relief. So how did the Game Master decide what the difficulty number is? The skill rules, see page 29, tell him how. You can read them if you want, or rely on your Game Master to tell you the numbers. Okay, page 29. Let's flip over to page 29. Attributes and skills. Which number do you use? Or which do you use? Difficulty numbers. Okay, so this is in the Game Master section. Oh, really? So Sable says Lucasfilm actually sent a box of the West End Games Star Wars RPG books to Timothy Zahn and instructed him to use them as reference when he was writing the Thrawn trilogy. Huh. All right, so yes. So actually, this probably needs to be kind of a series here on the morning grind, especially since this one's so important. So we will definitely get into the source book and see what's in there. So this definitely sounds like we need to do a series on this Star Wars. I'm glad I picked this up then. Not only apparently is it rare, but also so influential in the world of Star Wars. All right. So, okay, so difficulty numbers is in the Game Master section right here. Difficulty numbers. Exactly how do you determine difficulty numbers? It's very simple. Rules for each skill are provided below. When a rule describes a specific task, it provides a difficulty number for that task. In addition, each skill rule describes the skill's general purpose. A character is using the skill whenever he does something that falls under the general purpose. In this case, you must decide on the difficulty number. Just ask yourself, how easy is it, and use these guidelines. So actually, it sounds like this basically became the world Bible then for the basis of Star Wars. That's really cool. Okay, so just ask yourself, how easy is it? And then use the following guidelines. Very easy tasks, difficulty 5. If it's very easy, the difficulty number is 5. Examples: firing a blaster at point-blank range, knowing that Wookiees are called Wookiees, putting a restraining bolt on a droid. Easy tasks, difficulty 10. Things are a little tougher, but which most characters should be able to do most of the time, are difficulty 10. Examples: firing a blaster at short range, knowing that Wookiees use bowcasters. So knowledge checks are in here. Replacing a droid's visual sensors. Moderate tasks, difficulty 15. Things that require a little bit of an effort are difficulty 15. Examples: firing a blaster at medium range, knowing that Wookiees like to win, fixing a droid's servo motors. I love all of the Wookiee knowledge in here. The Wookiee knowledge is interesting. What is so the wild die? I love the wild die. I'm not sure what that is. Mad wild die props I saw physically rolled was 5. All right, so let's see. Difficult tasks, difficulty 20. Things are pretty tough and that require a lot of skill and maybe a little luck too, or difficulty 20. Firing a blaster at long range, knowing the customs and eating habits of Wookiees, reconditioning a badly worn and damaged droid. Very difficult tasks, difficulty 30. Something that requires great expertise, real effort, and complete dedication are difficulty 30. For example, firing a blaster at long range at someone who's dodging, being able to eat a meal with a Wookiee while obeying all of their customs and conversing fluently at length with your hosts, rebuilding a droid that's been blown to smithereens by stormtroopers. So we got 5, 10, 15, 20, 30. Moderate being 15. You know, my brother and I used to play with our Star Wars action figures a lot. We would go and buy secondhand action figures from a shop called Lion Unicorn. I guess that was kind of a comic book shop, but it was mostly, I guess, a gaming shop. They had comic books too, I suppose. But I remember, well, the original Lion Unicorn, I suppose, didn't have as much gaming stuff. But I remember I liked to go to Lion Unicorn, and then they would have the Warhammer stuff as well. But one of the shops we went to, they did sell Star Wars action figures, and they were loose. Of course, they had like the new in-box stuff as well. But they had a collection of loose Star Wars figures, like the original release. And they weren't all that expensive. They were enough that we could buy them on like allowance or whatever money that we had. and they would let us go behind. The guy who ran it would let my brother and I go behind the counter to take a look at the action figures. So before we bought them, we could actually pick them up and hold them and figure out which one we wanted rather than just looking at them through the case. They were the loose ones anyway. So we had a whole bunch of, a fair number of loose Star Wars, original Star Wars action figures. We played with those all the time. We had all kinds of Star Wars stories that we told. I bet that if we had something like this, even if we weren't playing as a RPG, I bet this would have given us an idea that, like, hey, wait a minute, we could like use this system to see if this guy shoots this other person or something with the action figures. I bet we would do that. Oh yes, please do. If you're here, please do hit the like button to push this. That way the algorithm would know to push this out to other viewers. There may be other people who are sitting here on YouTube right now who would love to be hanging out in the morning grind talking about some Star Wars like this classic piece of Star Wars history, but they just don't know that this is going on because the algorithm doesn't show it. So if you hit the like button, that does push it out to more people, and they might join us. Might be just what somebody wants this morning. So Lynn says, do you always, do the rules always dictate a single roll, or can you make multiple attempts to fix something that's really, really broken? I don't know. Let's find out. We'll find out. So that does sound that way. It does sound that way. So some things are just impossible if you don't have enough dice. So if you're, that's exactly how it sounds. So if you're 2D, if you've got a skill of 2D, then you aren't doing moderately difficult tasks. That's impossible. Well, without, well, even with a bonus of +2, but yeah, it sure sounds that way. Says you can do multiple actions. You have to split the dice pool. James says Star Wars is huge to this day. Toys, I mean, even though the new Hasbro stuff is dead on arrival, the old Kenner stuff sells extremely well. There were gaming figs. I think that, and I think I wanted those, but I never had them. I remember I think I saw those, but they were not there. But I never got any of them. How long does it take? So this is back in the Game Master section. So that gives us, let's go back to the bare bones. So that tells us our difficulty numbers. This is definitely section for players. How long does it take? Under most circumstances, using a skill or attribute takes 1 combat round, 5 seconds. However, some skills, Starship Repair, for instance, takes longer. Preparing. If you want to make sure that you use a skill or attribute successfully, you can take an extra round preparing. If you do nothing for 1 round, and in the next you make your skill roll, in this case, your skill code is increased by 1d. Okay, so if you, I guess that's like aiming. If you're trying to do the moderate thing, if you got 2D, this will require an additional round to prepare, whatever that means, I guess, in the context of that skill. So preparing will give you an extra D. So your blaster skill is 3D plus 1. You spend an extra round aiming. You now roll 4D plus 1 when you fire. Running. If you run in the same combat round you use a skill, your skill code is reduced by 1D. For example, your blaster skill is 3D plus 1. You dash across the hall firing at a stormtrooper. You roll 2D plus 1 when you fire. S. Becker says, I actually have one of the OG Luke Skywalkers with the expanding lightsabers from the early Bird set. Really? Oh, that is cool. I remember having some of the figures that had the lightsaber that slid up into their hand, but some of them were missing. So we would make new lightsabers out of colored toothpicks and shave them down so that we could put the lightsaber in their hand. We used a lot of G.I. Joe weapons for them because being loose figures that we were buying, I mean, only a few of them had their accessories and things like that. In fact, I remember also like there was a Imperial Guard that we had, but he didn't have his cape. It had been torn off. So he didn't have his robe on, which is like an important look for the Imperial Guard. But I remember getting him because I thought he was cool. And then my mother helped us, and we used red felt, and sewed him on a new cape. So we put a red felt cape on our Imperial Guard. So Tomocrat says there is an unofficial 3rd edition of the WEG Star Wars Online that cleans up the rules a bit. Because I think there is. I think as I was looking up this stream, I think there's a 2nd edition. So we go out to 3rd. RPG Exile says, yeah, I think for every move roll, you make it goes up a step in difficulty. You just can't remember if you lose dice from your pool. So this is saying running, you drop a die. Oh, James says Star Wars is why G.I. Joe were 3 3/4 inches. Kenner Star Wars set the standard scale for decades because it was so popular. Using more wounds. Okay, if you are wounded when you use a skill, your skill code is reduced by 1d. For example, you're wounded. Your blaster skill is 3d plus 1. When you fire, you roll 2d plus 1. Using more than one skill. Actually, you can use more than one skill or attribute in a single combat round. You have to decide which skills you will use during the combat round at the beginning of the round and tell the game master what you'll do. Every skill used the same first one. Every skill use after the first one costs you 1d. If you use 2 skills, all skill codes are reduced by 1d. If you use skills 3 times, all codes are reduced by 2d. If you use skills 4 times, their codes are reduced by 3d, and so on. These reductions apply to all skills used in the combat round. That is, if you use skills twice, both skills are reduced by 1d. So, for example, as Rorik walked back toward the control cabin, he heard a click, the ominous click of a blaster being set on stun, or maybe on kill. The truce was over, so it seemed. He pulled out his own blaster, leapt through the air, and Rorik's blaster skill is 5d plus 1. His player decides to fire 3 times in a single combat round. That's a total of 2 extra skill uses, so he subtracts 2d from the skill code. In addition, he's running since he leapt through the door, so skill codes are reduced by another 1d. The first time he fires, he rolls 2d plus 1. That's 5d plus 1 minus 3d. The second time, he rolls 2d plus 1 again, and the third time, he rolls the same thing. Obviously, if you try to do too many things, none of them will work. Let's see. So, example. Rorik's blaster skill is 5d plus 1. If he tries to fire 6 times the same round, he wouldn't fire at all because 5d plus 1 minus 5d is less than a single d, so he has no dice to roll. You can only spend a round preparing and get an extra die when you use one skill. If you spend 1 round preparing, then decide which you want to use 2 or more skills, and then decide you want to use 2 or 3 skills in the next round, you will lose the benefit of preparation and don't get the extra 1d. You also lose the benefit of preparation if you use a reaction skill in either round. What is a reaction skill? Dodge, melee, parry, and brawling skill parry are reaction skills. Dodge, melee parry, and brawling parry. That means you don't have to decide at their use at the beginning of the combat round. You can use them whenever you need to. If someone shoots at you, you can dodge them then and there. But that creates a problem. Suppose you're using other skills in the same round. In that case, your dodge or other reaction skills counts as an extra skill use. Any skill rolls made before you dodged are not affected, but any rolls you make after the dodge are. So, for example, Rorik wants to fire 3 times. Rorik brought his blaster down and squeezed off a shot. 3 skill uses mean Rorik's skill codes are reduced by 2d. Rorik's player rolls 3d plus 1, blaster code 5d plus 1 minus d2. The shot went wild. Before he can shoot again, the Imperial fired back. Rorik dodges desperately. The use of dodge means Rorik is now using the skills 4 times. How do we know the Imperial got to shoot after Rorik here? Tomocrat says the size damage scale system is so clean. I love this. I still use we'll have to see how that checks out. How did we know the Imperial got to shoot after Rorik's first shot here? I guess we'll find out later. The use of dodge means Rorik now has used a skill 4 times, 3 blaster shots, and 1 dodge. The first blaster roll is already made, so it isn't effective. However, his dodge roll and his last 2 blaster rolls will be reduced by 3d instead of 2d. You are never required to use a reaction skill. Using a reaction skill means the fewer dice for the rest of the round. So if you think you can get away with it, but you may want to avoid doing so. Die code modifications are cumulative. If you are wounded and spend an extra round preparing the skill, the 1d reduction and the 1d increase cancel each other out, and you just use your unmodified skill code. Remember, increases and reductions for wounds, running, and multiple actions are added together when more than one apply. How are we doing? We'll go to an hour and a half today. We'll go into combat here. Combat's about to come up, so let's figure out how to do combat. It does say beginning players. Don't worry too much about using more than one skill in a combat round. Beginning characters usually have low enough skills that one or two things is all you can do. The multiple skill rules are mostly used by characters who have been around a long time and have high skill codes. Because they have high skill codes, they can do many things in a single round and still have a good chance of succeeding. There's no limit to how high your skill codes can get. Conceivably, a character could have a code of 12D or higher, and Vader probably does. The higher your skill code, the better you are, not only because you can succeed at more often doing one thing, but because you can do lots of things at once. A really good shot can hit 6 targets in a single round. A really hot pilot can evade fire from 6 TIE fighters and outdistance them all. Okay, combat. Let's see how combat goes. Let's see. I probably got cold coffee. Yes. But let's see about combat here. All right. Combat is fought in combat rounds, each of which represents 5 seconds of real time. In a role-playing game, combat is not fought on a board. Instead, the game master describes your surroundings and opponents. He goes around the table and asks each player what his character is doing this combat round. When he comes to you, he must tell you what skills you're using. You must tell him what skills you're using and how many times you're using them. I'm firing at the trooper on the left and moving over there. You don't have to declare reaction skill uses. Next, the game master tells you what your opponents are doing. Then actions are resolved. Action segments. At the beginning of the combat round, each player must declare what his character is doing, whether he's moving, and if so, where, and what non-reaction skills he's using. Combat rounds are divided into action segments. During each action segment, each character may use one skill, attribute, or move. Okay, so that's our answer right there. Hey, Retro. Retro's here. Oh, Charlie's in. Charlie, got my RavenCon ticket. Excellent. So Charlie's in. RavenCon 0. Please do. I'll put that link up here at the end here. So Charlie's in too. That means there are at most 6 slots left. Lynn says, I'm wondering how characters increase in this skill in the system. Experience points, mile leveling? I'm not sure. Lynn says, my guess would be XP. Because milestone leveling came along later. Yeah, probably so. If it's something like milestone leveling, I bet it doesn't call it milestone leveling. So we got action segments. So that's how we knew that the Imperial must have shot, even though he's shooting 3. So this is different. In that you've got a round, but then you are actually subdividing the round into action segments. I've never seen anything like this before. So we declare what's going to be our actions for the round, but then at the beginning of the combat round, each player must declare what his character is doing, whether he's moving, and if so, where, and what non-reaction skills he's using. So combat rounds are divided into action segments. During each action segment, each character must use one skill or attribute or move. Exception: reaction skills don't take any time to use. You can use a reaction skill in a segment and still use another skill. For example, Roic wants to run, then fire. Janna just wants to fire. Janna's fire and Roic's movement occur in the first segment. Roic's fire occurs in the second segment. Movement and skill and attribute use occurs in the other order declared. One use per action segment. Movement and skill and attribute uses occur in the order declared, once per action segment. A character cannot pass a segment. Actions are resolved until the character has run out of declared actions to perform. So you got to declare that and remember it. Initiative. Normally, it doesn't matter exactly when during an action segment a particular character gets to act. Everyone just moves or shoots and then uses some other skill. The only time it matters is when someone uses a skill that will affect another character's use of the skill. For example, Rourke fires at Jana and vice versa. If Rourke gets his shot off before Jana does and wounds her, Jana never gets to shoot back. When two characters are doing things that affect each other, make a skill or attribute roll for both. If a character is moving, make a dexterity roll instead, since there's no skill code for movement. The higher roller goes first. Then the character with the next higher roll goes, and so forth. The same roll is used to determine whether the character's skill or attribute use succeeds. Oh, okay. So you make skills or attribute rolls for both to figure out who goes first, but that same roll is also used to determine whether the skill's attribute roll succeeds. So if you roll low, not only would you go second, I guess that actually is kind of elegant. So if somebody rolls a 12, you're trying to shoot each other, and somebody rolls a 12 and somebody rolls an 8. Not only did the 12 go first, but it was a better shot. So Michael says hero. Okay, and I don't know the hero system. Michael says hero has 12-second rounds broken into 1-second segments. Character speed determines how many segments you have and when in the round they occur. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, I have not looked at the hero system. Combat. Okay, so example, Jaina, blaster skill of 5D plus 2, and Rorik, blaster skill of 5D plus 1, both shoot at each other. The difficulty number for each shot is 15. I guess because they're shooting at, like medium range or whatever, moderate range or something. Jaina's roll is 19, Rorik's is 17. Jaina gets her shot off first because 19 is greater than 17 and hits Rorik because 19 is greater than 15. Rorik's fire never takes place. If Rorik had gotten his shot off, he would have hit because 17 is greater than 15. If rolls are tied, and one of the tied players is a player character, he gets to go first. If they're both non-player characters or both player characters, re-roll. Each combat round, you may hold still, walk, or run. Walking and running aren't skills. They're something everyone can do. Walking and running is an action and takes a segment. If you hold still or walk, you can turn by any amount left or right. If you walk, you can move up to 5 meters in any direction. 5 meters sounds pretty precise, but since combat is fought in the imagination rather than on a board or a map, you must rely on the game master's judgment. If he tells you can get someplace or reach the character in one round by walking, that's the case. If he tells you must run to get there in one round, or that it may take several rounds, his judgment is final. If you run, you can move up to 10 meters in any direction, twice as far by walking. A character who runs can only turn by 90 degrees in the combat round, making one right angle turn. Because we're moving so fast, you can't turn on a dime the way you can when you walk. Very 80s specification. A monster may act in more than one segment. Acting first is not always a good thing. Stance. You can always fall prone without penalty at the end of your movement. Falling prone is part of movement, not a separate action. Prone characters may only move by crawling. They may move up to 2 meters per round. When a crawling character makes a skill roll, his code is reduced by 1d, just like a running character. Getting up from a prone position is an action. You can turn and use skill in the same round, but you can't move. Prone characters are harder to hit in combat, seen below. Shooting. The blaster skill is frequently used in combat. The difficulty number for a shot depends on how far away the target is. Point blank range, a few meters, 5. Short range, 10. Medium range, 15. Long range, 20. The range of each weapon in meters is printed on the weapon chart. See page 139. That was for saying, difficulty number shots, point blank range. Here's our weapon chart. Holdout blaster, sporting blaster, blaster pistol, damage code, short range, medium range, long range, archaic weapons, grenades, melee weapons. That sounds like it needs to be a live stream. Playing RPGs with RNG. Oh, you were talking about Crown and Skull there. Okay. Oh, I must have missed. Missed it. All right, let's see. Shooting. Okay, so different ranges here. The range of each weapon in meters is printed on the weapon chart. Since combat is visualized, you must rely on the game master to tell you when you are firing at short, medium, or long range. Some weapons have better ranges than others. 20 meters is short range for a blaster rifle, but medium for a blaster pistol. So you got to look at your particular weapon. So even if your buddy is firing at short range, you may be firing at long, depending on the weapon used. Taking more than one shot means using the blaster skill more than once. If you roll higher than the difficulty number of your shot, you hit your target. For example, if you shoot at short range and roll a 10 or more, you have hit your target. Each weapon has a damage code. Most blasters have damage codes of 4D. When you hit a target, roll your weapon's damage die. For instance, Rourke uses a heavy blaster pistol, so when he hits, he rolls 5D. Then the game master rolls the strength die for your target. How badly injured your target is depends on the two rolls. Strength roll greater than damage roll. Stunned. So you were hit, but you're just stunned. Damage roll greater than or equal to strength roll, but less than 2 times the strength roll. Wounded. Damage roll at least 2 times the strength roll, but not less than 3 times. No, but less than 3 times. Incapacitated. Damage roll at least 3 times strength roll. Mortally wounded. We're not doing hit points. A lot of hit points here. So Sable says, interesting, it's using a variation of the zone-based combat that you see in stuff like the ICRPG or Shadow Dark. I wonder if this game was the first implementation of that kind of combat for RPGs. I don't know. It seems like it's also trying to articulate like theater of the mind, right? Michael says, I had a GM use 7th C to run a Dune campaign. Worked perfectly. So, for example, your damage roll is 12. If the target's strength roll is 13 or more, he's stunned. Between 7 and 12, he's wounded. Between 5 and 6, he's incapacitated. 4 or less, he's mortally wounded. Len says hit points can be a pain to track. Health wounding state's the sort of system that I prefer personally. I wonder if we got different types of armor here. Armor chart. Yeah, we got armor chart right here. Armor type, Stormtrooper armor, armor code 1D, protective helmet +1, protective vest +1, bounty hunter armor 1D. The armor code is added to the wearer's strength code for damage purposes only and subtracted from the wearer's dexterity attribute and skill codes for all purposes. So if you armor up, that's what you're supposed to do. Armor code is added to the wearer's strength code for damage purposes. So over here. A stunned character falls prone and cannot do anything for the rest of the combat round. A wounded character falls prone and can't do anything for the rest of the round. Anytime he rolls skills or attribute dice, his code is reduced by 1D. A wounded character who is wounded again is incapacitated. An incapacitated character falls prone and is unconscious. He can't do anything at all till he's healed. Incapacitated characters who are wounded or incapacitated again are mortally wounded. A mortally wounded character falls prone is unconscious. He can't do anything until healed. Worse yet, at the end of every combat round, he must roll 2D. If his roll is less than the number of rounds since he was mortally wounded, he dies. Wait a minute. Worse yet, at the end of every combat round, he must roll 2D. If his roll is less than the number of rounds since he was mortally wounded, he dies. Okay, that means you can't die in one. The roll at the end of the round in which the character is mortally wounded. If the roll is less than 1, which is impossible, he dies. Right, so you can't die on 1. The next round, he dies on anything less than a 2. Also impossible. Oh, less than. So also impossible. The third round on anything less than a 3. In other words, he's going to die eventually and pretty soon unless someone gets him to a medical droid or rejuvenation tank or uses a med pack. Make a strength roll when hit is not considered an action or a regular attribute use. You never modify the strength code for running wounds, taking an extra round, or multiple skill use. Let's figure out how to do dodges before we go. So another useful skill is dodge. When someone fires at you, you roll your dodge dice. The number you roll is added to the difficulty number. So, okay. So when someone fires at you, roll your dodge dice. That number is added to the difficulty number, because I knew, like, we got static numbers for short range, long range, etc. For example, the bounty hunter Jana Jarrell fires at Rorik, who dodges. Jana's blaster skill is 5d plus 2, and the shot is at short range, which is difficulty 10. Rorik's dodge skill is 4d plus 1. Rorik rolls a 14, so Jana's difficulty number is now 24. Jana rolls and gets a 22, close, but no cigar. There's something delightfully old school about this. You know, yes, you can play Star Wars using a D20 system. Becca says, never tell me the odds. So dodges are reaction skills. You don't have to declare dodges at the beginning of each combat round, and you can dodge and take other actions in the same segment. You must decide whether or not you're dodging before the attacker makes a skill roll. You can't wait to see whether he hits before deciding whether or not to dodge. If you dodge and more than one opponent fires at you in the same action, your dodge roll affects all opponents' attacks. For example, 4 stormtroopers fire at Rorik in the first segment. He dodges and rolls an 11. The dodge increases all 4 stormtroopers' difficulty numbers by 11 each, even though Rorik is only using the skill once. You can dodge every segment, but every time is a separate skill use and decreases skill codes 1d further. If someone fires at you in a segment and chooses not to dodge or can't, his attack roll is not affected. Wait, if someone fires at you in a segment and you choose not to dodge or can't, his attack roll is not affected, even if you used a reaction skill in an earlier segment. Yeah, it seems like so many things that we look at are so obviously influenced by Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. You know, a lot of different variations of Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. D20 plus modifier. We see that so often. It's nice to read something that's completely different, especially something that is like historical like this, that this is, you know, an alternate way of adjudicating stuff, which, you know, it gets developed later. I know people talking about the D6 system and stuff like that, but this completely different kind of way of thinking about approaching skills and combat and all of this. So Sable says, this combat system sounds pretty fast and exciting. I want to play it. Maybe somebody could build this out for the coffee shop sometime, like what we need in order to play something like this in the coffee shop. Hopefully we can, you know, modify different RPG stuff. And like this probably also works well for the near, far, whatever kinds of ranges and things like that. Maybe someone could set it up and play it in the coffee shop, the online coffee shop sometime. That would be fun. I know, exactly. Lynn says it's refreshing to see something that isn't D&D derived. Yeah, yeah. It is nice. Of course, there's the advantages. There's the advantages that everybody knows how to play D&D 5th edition. So that's a huge advantage when you sit down to the table. But this is, it's also nice to see something that's taking a completely different approach. Let's see. So, hey, come on in here. Before we go, let me take down our extra camera over here. But if you want to play, hey, tomorrow, if you want to do some gaming tomorrow, if you're not gaming in person tomorrow and you actually want to hang out, well, tomorrow night we are doing session 0 of RavenCon. So this is the place to be. Here's the ticket. I will put this down. Let's say we got 6 slots remaining. You don't have to be there the entire time. You'll get a code to log in. We're doing session 0 of the entire coffee shop right here. So come on in. Play games tomorrow. Play games online tomorrow. We got Hero Quest set up. We got that built out. We got Wizard's Quest. I really want to try to play Wizard's Quest, but we can play whatever. We got Dragon Strike built out. Come by, play. We'll test the whole system, and then hopefully it'll work. We'll have a lot of fun tomorrow. Please come by. If you would like, click that link and get a ticket. So, all right, today's Friday. I'm going to clean, and I'm going to sit here and write. But I will see everybody tomorrow. I guess we'll look at this some more tomorrow. We'll look at Star Wars some more tomorrow because there's more to look at, and including the source book. So we'll make this a series. So I will see everybody tomorrow morning for the morning grind. And I hope to see everybody tomorrow night for playing some games and enjoying ourselves tomorrow online. All right, everybody, thank you so much. This is great. I love the conversation this morning. As always, the chat is such an important part of all of this. Everybody, please like the stream, but now go forth, be creative, be constructive, and grind on. Later, everybody.